Hey Jason, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And to get started, can we dive into your journey in design a little bit?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
What got you into it and what keeps you in it?
What got me into it? It was a bit of a seminal moment, actually. I was at home visiting my parents in Alaska, and I was getting ready to go back to school to finish up studying marine biology, and I was 100% going to save the whales. And
Nice.
a friend of mine called and said, "Hey, I'm driving from Florida to San Diego. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I want to go." So I went and talked to my dad, and he's like, "Well, you got school. Are you gonna make it back?" And I was like, "I don't think I'm gonna make it back." And he's like, "All right, well, write out the pros and cons, and let's talk about it." And I wrote it down, and overwhelmingly, obviously, I was supposed to go back to school. And he said, "All right, let's go get you a plane ticket." And so this was long enough ago that we had to drive to a travel agent. And so we drove there, and my dad rips open the door and goes, "Somebody get this kid a ticket to Florida." And he made the decision for me. But yeah, I kind of left school at that point and moved to California, did the drive and the whole thing. And that started the whole progression into design and got, really into like logo design and websites and all that stuff. And that was the key there.
That's a pretty cool story. Definitely
Yeah.
different than a lot of the ones we have on here. Now you're in big financial investing space, which to me is fascinating. I think one of the questions I have, I think it's an interesting headspace that users are in. You have, your retirement or your investments in a large institution, and people are coming at that with a unique perspective, the security, what if my money gets lost? How fast is it growing? That kind of thing. So how do you think about the user psychology in that fintech investment space?
Yeah, there's so many different angles, right? Money is super personal and it's really important and there's never enough of it. And so when you're logging in to look at your account and you see your balance, you need to know if it's weird, you need to know why really fast. You need to be able to figure out, from the data being presented to you, what you can do about it, what changes you need to make, things like that. And so the while we're talking about large institutions and large amounts of money, the implications are very specific to that one person. And so trying to design for everybody is really hard. And so you've got to focus on like confidence. Can you make people better investors? Can you help them understand the steps that they're taking and why it's important? Can you raise their skill? Can you help them just be better with money? Like more of like a financial literacy angle. Can you help them at least get involved and take this like super esoteric, hard to understand world and bring it to them and help them be a part of that and help them realize why it's important to invest and why it's important to have your money working for you and why it's important to for your future to get all that stuff going. So there's a lot of angles, but it's all around it being super personal, super important to you. And so part of that is, historically, when you're working in finance, you've got to be a little bit careful, right? You've got a large user base. You can't make these rash decisions all the time.
Yeah.
Even if to a designer it looks better, you've caused a lot of problems, right? And you hear people like Julie Zhu talk about this. When you move something just a little bit for a billion users, you could be causing ripples for a lot of people in a lot of different ways that you can't even consider. I think
Yeah.
design and fintech has been a great place to be of late, and a lot of great companies doing a lot of great design. And I think it's only going to get better. But there are implications for every decision you make, and you've got to be aware of that. And you've got to try and be careful and do things in a way that won't disrupt people, but also make their lives better. It's a fun space because it's hard.
That sounds challenging. Got to be very tested and intentional with what you change and make sure that it's right. Yeah, let's dive into UX leadership a little bit. I'd love to hear how do you lead teams, inspire teams, motivate teams?
It's like a thousand things, Alex, right? It's like one of the things I tell my teams all the time is that I'm here to help them do the best work of their lives. And it sounds a little cliche or trite, but that's the mark I want to make on the universe. And so they hear it until they're sick of it. And that is really what I'm trying to do. And that comes with, obviously a lot of coaching, a lot of listening, a lot of helping people, but also like pushing people out of their comfort zone, really trying to help them see the ramifications of what they're doing, and how we can maybe be more strategic about it or not. So it's a bunch of little things. The way I look at it is just that, just approaching every piece and hearing every individual for their own self, and helping them do what's right for them. I firmly believe in taking people's strengths and turning them into superpowers. And so you and I have different strengths. Everybody has different strengths. So let's figure out what that is and figure out that thing that really gives you energy. And then let's push on that. And that's kind of my approach.
Yeah, it's similar to the UX you mentioned, like individual circumstances, personalized education roadmap. But how do you keep growing as a leader? Like, I mean, I'm sure at some point you were promoted to leader. Oh my God, I'm a UX manager. What do I do? And now you're better. And how do you keep getting better?
Well, first of all, there's passion, right? I think we talk a lot about designers being really great individual contributor designers, and they get to a certain level and then their next career step has to be management. I don't
Yeah.
know that that's the case, and I don't know that that creates the best leaders. Sometimes it does, certainly if they're passionate about it. That's a prerequisite, right? So for me, I love this idea of leadership. I love this idea of helping people and growing people, and so I read about it, on social media, reading about it. I study it. I make connections with things that aren't connections. Like I watched a documentary about Magic Johnson, and turn that into a way that I could help people, even when they're not looking, like the way that he passed the ball, and that you had to be ready at all times. Otherwise, he was going to throw it right by you because you had no idea when or where the ball was coming, right? Something like that, I think. And it's born out of passion. And not everybody has it for every type of leadership, but that's number one. Just studying it, wanting to be in it, and feeling really passionate about it. The other stuff is like learning from others. I mentioned Julie Zhu earlier. She wrote a great book called The Making of a Manager, where she was a peer and then she got promoted into a manager position and had to learn like a completely new, different thing, right? And suddenly
Yeah.
the people that were her friends yesterday are like kind of acting weird toward her now, And so there's learning from others that have done it. There is, you can handle it or think of it like your own research project. When I was looking at what it takes to be a leader, I just went out and interviewed leaders. I talked to a bunch of them and I asked them all the same three questions. And then I put those answers in a little matrix and kind of looked at themes, and understood how people work, and what makes a leader and what doesn't. And again, born all of passion.
No, I think having a passionate leader that still gives a crap about the craft and what the team's doing is crucial, and that's definitely not every leader. So I totally agree. Let's go on to the final topic. Obviously, quickly changing world out there for new designers that are entering the field today. What
Yep.
advice do you have for these new people that are coming out of school or just hopping into Figma for the first time?
Yeah. Broadly, I would say don't be scared, and I think today that probably means a few different things. If we're talking about AI, there's a bit of uneasiness maybe for designers around AI, but I think Rachel Kobetz, I think, said recently, she was talking about the new version of a designer is going to be less about delivery, because that's not a differentiation anymore. You can build an app in a matter of seconds. It's about judgment, right? And I think that's really interesting, right? It's about taste and it's about craft. And those are the types of things I talk about. So those are the things that are inherent to designers, taking these esoteric things and insights from people and human emotion and turning it into something beautiful. That I think can't be replaced by an AI. Now, we may watch this in a few years and I'm totally wrong, but that's what I think is the focus for now. So like embracing however you're using AI and building it into your workflow and understanding where you have leverage and where you don't, I think is one version of not being scared. I think the other thing is working in product teams, especially when there's a lot of technology and a lot of development, and understanding that you're here to build products. And so you've got to work with all these different people and partners, and they can be opinionated, they can be really, obviously, really smart, they can be intimidating at
Yeah.
times. And
Yep.
knowing why you're there, and why you're a part of that work, and the fact that it's hard to ship a great app without a good designer on the team, I think is really important. So understanding your role on there, also understanding that your voice is valuable, and speaking up, and making sure that you're doing right for your users and you're adding business impact. So I think that's the other version of not being scared.
Yeah, I love that. Don't be scared. Jason, thank you so much for joining the show today. This has been great.
Of course, man. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it.